Well, now, this is the last Monday meeting of this term. On Thursday, the 29th, that's Thursday of this week, there will be held the annual general meeting of the Society, the first part of which, starting at 8:15, is for full members of the Society only. This is followed by a talk by Alan Smith entitled Pottery, People and the Wheel of Time. This will be open to associates, that is, all those people who come to our group meetings, and people who want to come to that later part are asked to wait downstairs until it begins, which is likely to be about 8:30. And will you please note that there will not be a meditation meeting in April. There will not be a meditation meeting in April. So that means that the next meditation meeting will be on Tuesday, the 8th of May. And there's going to be a work-in on Sunday the 22nd of April. Sunday the 22nd of April. There are lists for names for this on the landing. We'd like as many people as possible to come, as there's quite a lot to be done to keep the house in order. And of course it also provides an opportunity of good company during the holidays and working together. And those groups who have been in the working party have found this physical work together to be a very valuable experience. Next term starts with a large meeting on Monday, April the 30th, and movements will also begin that evening. Group meetings will start that same week. That's the week beginning the 30th of April. The first Macabre of next term will be the 4th of May, which means that turning practices will start on Tuesday the 1st of May, but there will not be a Macabre for visitors until the 11th of May. So the first Macabre for visitors will be the 11th of May.
So when other people are dancing around a maypole, they'll be coming for turning practice.
Yeah. Because there are 2 bank holidays in May, there are very few available for meetings, so there will not be another large Monday meeting until the 4th of June. So the first Monday meeting, large Monday meeting of next term, will be on the 30th of April, and the next large meeting will be on the 4th of June.
It'd be nice to make this meeting a sort of summary in a simple way of what we set out to do. Come along up in front, lots of room up here. I want, as we've got it here now, I would like to clear up certain points arising from discussions I've heard about this reading 5 and the 2 points of view illustrated in it about ways of looking at the world. One way, which was the way our Western system used to look at it, and the way I think that most people look at the physical world today is to look from below. Man, one of the species of organic life, live on this earth, very tiny thing. In the planetary world, our solar system, which is just one of a myriad number of stars in the Milky Way, which is just one of uncountable galaxies which at present seem to be moving rapidly away over the celestial horizon. That's one way of looking at it. And we certainly should have that picture and know about it. But I don't find it of the slightest use in self-realization. It's been a tremendous surprise to me. I thought for years that that was the key to so many different things. We have, I think, a much quicker, more direct way to look at it from above. Going from below, one can turn off into side alleys at so many points that requires such a long and patient determination and constant help to keep on the right road. Now we have the opportunity of learning how to look at it from above. And it's that second illustration, the story told recently by the Shankaracharya, which I want to concentrate on at the moment. I don't know whether you would like to hear any of it again or whether you've heard it so much that you know what I mean when I refer to it. The point was that being shown by a rich man, businessman, his achievements, this realized man, we might call him a wise man and not a holy man, was taken room by room in this 14-storied building, and at a certain point there was a map of the world on the wall. And he asked what that was and was told that this was a map of the whole world. So then he asked where India was located on the map, and he was shown an area. He went on asking, where is Bombay? And like any other big city in the world, it could only be shown on a map of the world as a dot. So he went on, and now where's your building? To which the host replied that since the whole of Bombay was represented by a dot, how could he really indicate his building? And the wise man said, well, have I not really seen all I need to be shown? And the point as regards ourselves, I think, is that in relation to consciousness, we need to keep the broad picture and not go into detail too much. The first way of looking at things was an intellectual way, a way of cognition, of thought, of thinking. The second way is a way of looking at things in moments of consciousness. And it's shown in the group discussions that I've seen, in that directly people began to get very intellectual and tried to get down to detail, the whole thing got lost. Has anybody anything to say about this? They're just the main step, that on the map of the world you can only see countries, cities. Come up in front. Do you see the point? Is there some difficulty about it? Be brave. I'm sure you haven't accepted that, swallowed the fish absolutely whole without bones, tail and all, have you?
Dr. Rose, a snag to me is that in moments of greater consciousness you may see a bit more of the whole, but when you're not in those moments, you know you forget it, and you can make up your own things. You don't remember except when you're in the moment.
Mrs. Branston says that the difficulty is that in moments in consciousness you may see a little more of the whole, but except in those moments you forget it and you may invent your own things.
Yes, granted, but what we want to do is to develop something we can do in moments when we aren't conscious to get there.
Yes.
Because it's so nice. Why go on living in the dark, in the cellar all the time? And one won't do that, I think, by means of an Einsteinian conception of the world. And that we could do it if we did what we were shown. Any other question?
As the map is contained in the room, that is, the whole is contained in the part, is that one way of thinking of seeing the whole in the part?
Miss Cullinan says that as the map was contained in the room, so the whole was contained in a part. Is that one way of seeing the whole?
Maybe, yes. If you see it that way, that's fine. I think that the main way to realize it is to realize that all the details come on an ever-repeating circle, changing all the time. Whereas come away from that circle towards the center, and everything is always. And you will see then the map of the world, and you will see two steps from that to the big city. In relation to any problem or any question or anything. And the whole art is to withdraw from the perpetual revolution of turning thoughts and habitual behavior. Let's see other sides of the question. You discussed it, I'm sure, at most of the meetings. What came up?
Dr. Rose, on the ray of creation, darkness, on the lateral octave, there's a point called the spiritual sun. That seems to give a totally different meaning to that way of looking at things to me.
Mr. Buller says that in the ray of creation and lateral octave, the diagram showing that, there is a point which is marked the spiritual sun. And this seems to give an entirely different way of looking at it.
Yes, but how long did we take before we understood that, Clifford? Quite a long time. And the question is, have we not got something quicker now? That spiritual sun corresponds to the Atman, as we are told about it today. And that brings me to the question of, is spiritual the same as causal, that Dale make it out? No, it isn't. In this sense, that the use of the term causal is a factual term involving a logical approach in the discussion, time-honored discussion of what is cause and what is effect. The word spiritual is a word extremely difficult to define, which is used in 1,000 different senses, and you can't get hold of it. A man once submitted to Mr. Rupensky a paper which he thought related to Mr. Rupensky's way of teaching. All Mr. Rupensky did was to hand it back and say, give it to him, and he'd underlined every time the word spiritual was used in the course of this short article about, I suppose, 10, 12 times a page, all different. Every time he mentioned spiritual, it meant something different. So spiritual is a word difficult to get hold of, and it's only used loosely by us when we want to say in a word, we're speaking not from the point of view of flesh and bones, the physical body, but from the point of view of the more lasting side of man. Come and sit down. No, up closer. So the language must be appropriate to the subject, to the theme, to the people, to the conversation. As we said, you can't talk about the emotional life of man in scientific language. It just doesn't work. Even more emotional life of woman.
Dr. Rolls, does the study of the 6 processes help in one's personal work?
I can't see, there's not much light, but does the study of the 6 processes help in one's personal work? Work on oneself?
What 6 processes?
What 6 processes?
It's Joe's keeping. Joe's keeping.
Oh yes,
Yes, it
Joe. Which are you meaning?
It wasn't. The 3 combinations of the 3 forces.
Yes. There's a lot of coming nearer the center, being conscious in emotional center, before one sees the 6 combinations in any practical form, keeping. That's why I haven't dared broach it. There have been signs of indigestion already this term, and if one broached Mr. Spensky's teaching of the 6 triads or 6 activities of man at this stage, the indigestion would be hurried. But I think we'll begin as soon as possible next term. It's meant to do just that you say. It's meant to help. Can we just read
Hasn't.
Why I'm broaching this, what I'm getting at is expressed very clearly by Shankaracharya, in a conversation where he was speaking to a big crowd on the question of life, birth and death. And he said at one point, in this ageless continuum of time, what is the good of going deeply into temporary things? A little while ago we started preparing for this festival, and now we're packing it up. In our case, a little while ago we started planning this term's meetings, and now we're finishing them off. Everything that begins has to end. Every person that is born has to die. Life is a circle. And that is the meaning of the symbol of the circle. As regards life and death, each birth writes down the destiny of death, and each death writes down the destiny of birth. But you won't understand that, and the only thing that you can understand is this, that the Atman, the self, is birthless and deathless, and it's only the body, the physical body, that has a short span of life, is born and dies. Understand that much, and it will be better than trying to understand the whole thing, because in trying to understand the whole thing, you may end by understanding nothing. And that is really the association I have with that story about the 14-story house in Calcutta, about big things like life and death. Try to understand just the fundamental thing about the circle of time. Because if you go into detail too much, as in Dr. Connell's group, for instance, you end by understanding nothing. Okay, you're happy about that? Sir, Dr. Cox.
I was reminded of a man who sailed around the world, a book by John. He describes how in his mind's eye he saw his boat crossing his course across the ocean. That seems to mean to me that there is a consciousness which stands quite still and in which the movement of a man's life or his work, his day, can be seen. Is that right?
Dr. Cox quotes a book by a man who sailed round the world, John Slocum, I think. Joshua Slocum, who said that in his mind's eye he could see the course of his voyage. And Dr. Cox says that in consciousness one can see. Could you repeat the next bit?
There is the stillness of consciousness in which the movement of a man's life or of his day it can be seen. Is that right?
In the stillness of consciousness, the movements of a man's life or his day could be seen. Is this right?
I absolutely agree, yes. And you need to get that sort of a moment much more often, don't you? You need to be able to come to the stillness where you see those things, at will, when you need it, when you want it.
Seeing that he didn't see his misery, he didn't see his trouble, he saw his course.
He didn't see his misery, he didn't see his troubles, he just saw his course.
Yes. It's that you need to see, isn't it? You don't dwell on any failings or any inadequacies. You want to see the course you're keeping to. That is what you're meaning?
Yes,
And it's impossible to live in this complicated life and be right all through without having guidance of that sort. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. He agrees
Yes,
totally.
yes. And so one doesn't regard oneself as superior to all the people who come to us as rather lost, and one feels that they haven't had a break, they haven't had the chance that we've had, and one tries to help them every possible way. Now, any other line of questions? Or there any more of that?
Dr. Rowe, at the Friendship meeting, we tended to link the Shankaracharya story to the lesson that I have nothing of my own, and related it to the last sentence, the importance of the light within. Do you think this is also a way of understanding it?
At the Friendship group, they linked the story of the 14-story house to the idea I have nothing of my own, and to the last line of the paper about the light within. Is this also a useful way of looking at it?
Oh, very useful, because that's really what the wise man wanted to point out to this businessman, wasn't it? Precisely that if the businessman realizes how tiny, minute anything of his own would be in a map of the world, he would be on a fair way to self-realization, and would at once link himself with cosmic forces. I quite agree. So one tries to find the light within one, and that comes through this sort of realization you mentioned. I'm glad your group did that. Fine. Can we decorate them in some way?
Dr. Wells, is it correct to say it's a question of octaves, as in the example of sailing the world, the end objective was borne in mind? Is that an octave in itself, whereas another octave was the training to do just that, and also the building of a seaworthy craft, when these problems would have been foreseen and coped with at that stage?
Can you repeat?
Yes, Mr. Richardson's asking about this topic in relation to octaves, and he's relating it to the example of the man sailing the world, where one octave is the object he has in mind, and another octave is the training necessary to undertake the trip.
No, that's all part of one octave on the scale, Richardson. There is a training period, and there's an executive period, and there's a period of perfection and perhaps retirement. It's all part of a single octave, see. And there'll be subdivisions and all the rest of it, but all part of one process. Now, what about you? I'm sure you feel that it's been rather unfair to Einstein. Yes.
I've been trying not to think too much for the past week.
Mr. Tew says he's been trying not to think too much for the past week.
Oh, very good. Very good. And And really, if we can only store up these questions that we'd like to have solved for us, not do without them, but store them up and work hard towards getting to a place where you're free of habitual thoughts and have the light, you'll find that these questions that you've often asked yourself will be answered step by step in the most marvelous way, just being told what you could understand, and then a little later you get told a little more, and so on. This is the method that we try and adopt here, you see. In the end of that quotation, there's something about the meditation takes one to the realm of a point of unity, in which this most magnificent universe, with all its forms, knowledge and bliss, is brought into one single experience. And actually it was brought into this last talk of Attenborough's, where he speaks about all the amazingly different forms of mammals as variations on a theme. You remember, he calls the talk Variations on a Theme. And he tries to find the theme. He tries to find the theme in which all these variations are forms. And how can one describe this? All it can do is to indicate in a symbolic way and give a rough sketch, which is all we've been able to do ourselves. And the real thing lies in the experience alone. You've got to get more experience. Now that brings us to the fact that seeing things in terms of a symbol, it belongs to the fifth step of yoga. It's a very important thing, which we haven't made use of. And I'd just like to have Lord Allan read a bit quoted by Mr. Uspensky in A New Model about the use of a symbol.
It's page 217, in which Mr. Uspensky reminds us of certain essentials we often forget when we try to use our symbol. He writes, a symbol can always be studied from an infinite number of points of view, and each thinker has the right to discover in the symbol a new meaning corresponding to the logic of his own conceptions.
Just pause. You've got that it's never a case that my point of view about the symbol is right and is the only right one. But everybody who seeks guidance from the symbol has a right to his own interpretation, according to his... Carry on.
Symbols are intended to awaken ideas sleeping in our consciousness.
Designed to awaken ideas which are sleeping in our consciousness.
They arouse a thought by means of suggestion, and thus cause the truth which lies hidden in the depths of our psyche to reveal itself.
Do you get that? We don't use that enough. Do we, Crampton? It's what an artist, in the visual arts anyway, is supposed to be doing.
So that's how it works.
That's how it works, Mr. Crampton says.
And
a symbol can be words, which can trigger off.
And when a sculptor or a painter sees something himself, it has to stay a long time before he can do anything about it. He has to hold it, doesn't he? If he sees the image of the complete work that he wants to produce, he has somehow to maintain that for a sufficiently long time to consider all the ways of working it out.
Until it's finished.
Until it's finished.
Anybody got any views on this kind of topic? Stage? Will we go on with this quote?
In order that symbols can speak, it is essential that we should have in ourselves the germs of those ideas, the revelation of which is the mission of the symbol. No revelation whatever is possible if the mind is empty, sterile, and inert.
How often do I find that? So, we've tried to introduce that aspect of our universal symbol, which is dealing with the house of three stories in which a man lives. And we found that it arouses the germs of related ideas. For instance, it shows one lots of new things about the Eightfold Path of Yoga and its relation to our meditations, our simplified meditation. A lot of other things, too, which you'll find it will awaken. But only if one has the germs of these ideas available. At other times, when one's as flat as a pancake, nothing happens. Any questions about that? According to yoga, symbols are used on the fifth step in one way and on the sixth step in another way. On the fifth step, it's used to withdraw the sensory part of the mind away from all objects of sensation. Just as a tortoise withdraws its head and limbs into its shell, which is essential to a half hour's meditation. And that is pratyahara, the fifth step, withdrawing from all objects of sensation temporarily. The sixth step, which is dharana, refers to the ideational part of the mind. Withdraw from all ideas except one. Keep one idea and get the power of withdrawing from all other trains of thought and associations and everything else onto this one idea. So you can use the symbol we've given you or any other symbol of the cross. For one or other, there's objectives. In one case, you have no thought whatsoever, you're dealing with the sensory mind. In the other case, you have one thought and one thought only. Is that clear?
Dr. Rolls, does it have to be an accepted symbol? Because something came to my mind from the last paper, which I don't think is what you intended to be brought to mind. The first part, it seemed like circles going outwards, and the second part going inwards to a point.
Yes, you're quite right. I don't know if you can repeat it.
Ms. Cassini asked, does it have to be set symbol? Because in the relation to the last paper, it came to her as circles going outwards and circles going inwards to a point.
Well, it wasn't circles, it was just straight to a point.
But it was straight to the point. Circles going outwards and straight inwards to the point.
Well, you see how difficult it is to express it. But you're free. It came with some clarity, or you wouldn't remember it now. You're free to develop that approach to this symbol and see if it won't turn over the pages of the book a bit more. There'll be thousands of approaches to it, and each person is quite right to has a right to his own. Somebody asked, does a man have to realize consciousness by those three channels, through actions, through emotion, through knowledge? Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. It isn't a question of does he have to. It's a question that all those three are available to any normal, fairly balanced person. In the old days, you had to be a specialist on one or the other. If you wanted devotion, you had to go that way, by a religious way, with rituals and so on. And when you got into the fourth room, you would find it wasn't enough, and you had to come out again and go in another way. But Raja Yoga, from which our meditation system and the mantra meditation itself was taken, goes straight to the center by all those three ways, just as our system was supposed to do. It deals directly with consciousness. It uses those three gates to go straight to the center. I seem to edge away from the point where people are interested and where they want to discover more. I'm always doing that. And Mr. Spence used to say, you go a step too far all the time. I'm sorry.
Sometimes things happen of their own accord, or seem to, and some experience, and you seem to become part of it, and it's fine. But how to cause it to happen is the whole problem, isn't it?
Mrs. Cardew says sometimes things seem to happen of their own accord, and you go along with it, and things are fine. But it's how to cause it to happen that is the whole problem.
Yes. And that is a matter of not wasting energy on trivial things. If one can try and be still, particularly the thinking part of the mind, which has all the strain, you will save energy. There's no moment where you can't save a drop of energy. A lot of moments you save a lot of drops. And that is the way to create causes. Because as soon as the sattva reaches a certain concentration, at once things begin to happen.
Is the silence the means by which the anchorer reaches the Atman?
Mr. Sampson asks, is the silence the means by which the ahanka reaches the Atman?
The silence is necessary, yes, because the Atman is there telling you things, is always ready to help, is anxious to help, and is helping all the time, but we never hear. There's so much hubbub going on, and so silence is necessary in order to hear.
When one does get an insight, apart from the insight itself, which is quite clear, there's a feeling of an old familiarity about the place from which it came.
Mr. Sampson says that when one does get some insight, there
is a feeling of an old familiarity.
Oh yes, there is a feeling of an old familiarity with the place from which the insight came.
Yes, this familiar place, we all of us in this room know. Coming back home, we know it a little more vividly. By the way, about a hanker, I'd always got it wrong. I thought that the pulse hanker, was the thing that said how clever I am and I'm better than anybody else and I know all the answers. In one conversation not so long ago, His Holiness took a quite different line. He said the pulse hanker is the thing which tells you that you are something other than the Atman. Your true ahanka is a servant who knows that you are the Atman. So we who were brought up in the greatest humility and the old system and kicked around quite a bit should remember that pulsar can be that way too. I don't know if it ever does that to Mr. Sampson. I seem to remember it in the past. Shall we do 5 minutes of meditation? Wish ourselves a happy Easter, and perhaps some last question may arise. Well, those of you who are having trouble because part of you wants to do one thing and another part wants to do the opposite, probably rather enjoyed that story on one of the radio programs last week. But I think it has to do also with your trying, Mark, to stop one hemisphere thinking too much in order to let the other play. It was simply that an old lady had a parrot, and the clergyman benignly came to call on her, expressed interest in the parrot, and was surprised that he should have a sash tied to each leg. And the old lady explained that when she pulled the sash on one leg, the parrot had been trained to sing all things bright and beautiful. And when she pulled the sash on the other leg, the parrot had been trained to sing "Onward, Christian Soldiers." And so the benign clergyman said, "And what happens if you pull both?" "I'd pull off my perch, you fool," said the parrot. So don't do both at once, you see. It should be told in Scots, but well, now I do hope you'll get some refreshment from your Easter holiday, and some will be going travelling and some will be staying at home. I don't think anyone will be travelling quite as much as the Allans. We're doing a world trip crammed with duties they have to perform, not only business, but for us as well. For instance, they're initiating in Sydney, and they're calling in at Wellington. And then they're going round to New York and Mexico, South America, that's right, isn't it? The only one hope for them, that going around the world that way, you save a whole day, which is not on the calendar. And that non-existent day they're going to spend at Tahiti, I understand. And you will have great difficulty, I'm sure, in getting Lady Allan to come back from the beaches of Tahiti, where she'll be having hibiscus flowers in her hair.
Where we spend a non-existent Friday.
Non-existent Friday. But do come back. Happy Easter then.